is Neoclassical Economics, and what can Neoclassical Economics contribute to the debate on the climate crisis? According to Neoclassical Economics, the central economic problem is the allocation of scarce resources. Therefore, the most important criterion of evaluation is efficiency. This means that resources should be used optimally in order to maximize individual utility and the welfare of a country. In order to calculate these optimal resource allocations, neoclassical economists use mathematical models that have a number of shared characteristics. Neoclassical economists think that all socioeconomic explanation has to be sought at the level of the individual. This approach is called methodological individualism. Also, neoclassical economists assume that behavior is preference-driven. This means that all behavior aims at satisfying preferences. Individuals do what maximizes their utility under a constraint that is given. For example, people choose how much they would like to work, given their preference for money versus leisure. The third aspect is that in neoclassical models, the sum of individual preferences for a certain good, the demand and the supply, lead to a market equilibrium. Neoclassical economists are interested in this equilibrium and how it looks like. Dr. Kathrine von Graevenitz, what do you think about these models?
A model is a tool, like a map. It has to abstract from some of the details to be useful, but a good model provides a framework and clear and reasonable assumptions about behavior. A good model is also tailor-made to the question it's meant to answer, and no model will ever answer all questions. In the real world, too many things are moving at once, and the challenge of empirical research is to figure out what drives what. Models provide a structure for that analysis.
The part of neoclassical economics that is devoted to studying the climate crisis is called environmental economics. Environmental economics extends the standard neoclassical framework and includes environmental and climatic conditions into the calculations. Environmental economics is based on the idea of substitutability. Substitutability means that environmental goods don't have an intrinsic or unique value, but are valuable only in the sense that they provide a service to society. For example, forests are often seen as carbon sinks, which might be replaced by something else if they are destroyed. In this view, any environmental good can be replaced with something else if the substitute provides the same service.
Research focuses on the direct and indirect benefits the environment provides to humans, which then often implies that environmental goods can be substituted. One example, if the benefit of insects is that they pollinate apple trees, this benefit can also come from human pollination. However, especially newer research takes into account that substitutes are often very imperfect.
Generally speaking, environmental economics considers the climate crisis to be a market failure. That means that the market price doesn't include the real cost of production. The overall damage of global warming is framed as an environmental externality to economic activity. An externality is the cost which the society pays, but the individual does not take into account. Whenever there are externalities, the market fails to produce an efficient outcome. In the case of the climate crisis, this is an outcome with dramatic consequences.
What politicians should do, what their main task is to create incentives for people to behave in the way that we as a society want them to behave.
The most important suggestion from neoclassical economics is to implement such a carbon price through an additional tax or a cap-and-trade scheme that increases the price of harmful products. Once individuals face the actual costs of emitting CO2, they have a stronger incentive to avoid emissions and take societal consequences into account. As a consequence, individuals change their behavior, and there is also a much bigger incentive to restructure production on a higher scale.
So the main issue is that carbon emissions currently are not priced globally, and that firms are lacking the planability they need to invest in green technologies.
Carbon pricing is, I think, important, but of course it cannot do everything. There needs to be other instruments as well, because the world is more complicated than an economic textbook. And one example I always have is the transportation sector, where clearly it will not be sufficient just to put a price on motor fuels if there is no other options that can be taken. So one needs also to foster development of alternatives.
I don't think there are evil people around. I think incentives are what drive behavior, and we need to create a level playing field so that doing the right thing pays off.